How's everybody doing today? I certainly hope you're doing well. It's time for another edition of Story Time. Now, I like to let people know whether or not it's a true story or not. It is not a true story. It is a story that I created. The name of the story is called Soul Survivor. So let's go ahead and begin. There was a gentleman by the name of Garrett, and he was going to go to college to study law, and specifically constitutional law, because his aspirations all of his life was to become a Supreme Court justice. But in order to do that, well, you need to get a law license and you got to go up the ranks. Now, Garrett was the only child, and his father had died when he was in his teens. And so the only person he had to rely on, for the most part, would be his mother. He had no brothers and sisters. But his mother was loaded, let me tell you. She was rich beyond belief because she, of course, inherited a bunch of property from her late husband, and also the stocks and bonds and everything that goes along with it, including the house. So Garrett went off to college, and he'd been there for several years, and it was coming up for the finals. In about 2 weeks, he was to do all the tests and whatnot. But on a Friday afternoon around 4 p.m., he received a call from his mother's attorney informing him that she had passed away. And of course, that was extremely traumatic for Garrett. And he dropped everything that he was doing. He raced home. And when he got there, the attorney had made mention the reason why she passed away so abruptly is because she had an aneurysm. Now, Garrett's mother was very involved in the opera. She was also involved in fundraising for, different hospitals and charities, so she was well known throughout the community. So as he's setting up for her funeral and the day of the funeral, hundreds upon hundreds of people showed up. And they also got up and made their speech about what a wonderful woman she was, how she gave and donated all this money to all these different charities and all these private organizations. And it was a beautiful funeral, let me tell you, if there can be such a thing. So after the funeral, he's finalizing the execution of her will with the attorney or her attorney, because of course the transfer of the deeds and the transfer of all the other properties along with the stocks and the bonds and just all that stuff, you know what I mean, right? So Garrett decided he was going to take this house rather than going back to school, going back to college to live out his dream and to get his law license and go up through the ranks and become a Supreme Court justice. He decided that, you know what, he's got to take care of things at the home. And as he's going through all of the personal effects, he came across a photograph of he and his mother when he was in his teens. He'd never seen it before. And it was about an 8 by 10, so he went out of his way to get it framed because it was a very good photograph. And, at the time the photograph was shot, both of them were smiling and giggling and carrying on and about. So it was a happy time, it was a good memory. So as he's taking all this furniture and all of her personal effects that, he has nothing. He can't do anything with them. He donates those to ARC, veterans or some thrift store and the like. And this goes on for several weeks, and he's in a state of mourning, as anybody else would be. So he decides after about 2 months, he's had about enough of this. And even though he doesn't need to work any longer, because truly, Garrett, being a young man, is a millionaire beyond belief. He's got all this property. He's got a house, he's got money in the bank, and stocks and bonds and all that stuff. But you can only party so much. You know what I mean? So Garrett decides he's going to go get a job because he needs to shake this negativity. He needs to get a job so that way it will pull him up to the point of some sort of normalcy. And that's what he goes out to do. So as he's perusing around the interwebs and he's applying for these different jobs, he's set up for an interview at about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. It's a Thursday. And he goes out there and he talks to this woman. The woman's name is Barbara, and she's in charge of all of the hiring and the firing of this specific company. Now, the specific company is a company that delves in fraud, dealing specifically with the IRS. So they are a subsidiary of the IRS, of the fraud division. Well, seeing that Garrett had a little bit of experience, not so much as far as actual experience, but he had several years under his belt with law, that's going to help things along. But as he's sitting there for the interview, he tells Barbara, he goes, Barbara, I really don't need the money. And to be quite honest, what I need is a job. I need a job to pull myself out of this gunk, this grunge that I'm in, this negative, ambiance of everything. My mother just passed on. I was in college. I was trying to at least get a law degree, and when she passed away, it just messed everything up. And I need this job, Barbara. So please, I'm sure you have other people to interview, but I need this job. I don't want this job. I need this job. So whatever it takes, please give me this job. And Barbara, she was an older woman, and she was very compassionate. She goes, Garrett, I've heard some stories in my time. And I've heard about every sob story on the block. But in this particular case, I do believe you. And, according to what I'm looking at here, you were in college and everything matches up. But I tell you what, I'm going to go ahead and say that I'm going to hire you. And seeing that today is Thursday, you will start tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. We work until about 3:30. You have a half-hour lunch. She goes, however, it is all contingent on the fact that you pass the drug test and the background check. So by Monday afternoon at about 2 o'clock, I'm going to find out if you passed the drug test and the background check. And if you do, you're seated indefinitely. Unless, of course, something goes wrong or you quit. He is so appreciative. Because now it gives him some sort of opportunity to get out of this negative gunk. You know what I'm saying? So the very next day he gets up about 5:30 in the morning, showers, shave, the whole 9 yards. Well, see how Garrett doesn't have a car. He Ubers into work or he walks, because from his house to the place in which he's going to work at is about 6 miles. You can walk it, but why? So in a lot of cases, he'd just take a taxi or an Uber. So he gets there right on time, and he's going to have to go through some sort of training. He greets Barbara again, a lady who hired him, and he needs to go into some sort of training for 2 weeks. Now, the building in which he's working at is a 3-story building. And in the center is the entire floor is dedicated to the subsidiary for the IRS of the fraud division. So Monday rolls around, 2 o'clock, just like Barbara had stated. She walks up to him and says, "Congratulations, Garrett. Your background check came up clean. You passed your drug test. You're in like Flynn." He's very appreciative again. And Garrett goes on to work there for several weeks. Now, you see, at about the 4th week in, Barbara came up to him and said, Garrett, we need to have there's going to be some sort of audit of all of our financial dealings over the past year. I know you're new here and all that sort of thing, but you need to get ready for that. And at the time, she's holding a huge cup of coffee, and she's kind of talking to him near his cubicle. So you got the walls of the cubicle here, and then another wall here, and then like the entranceway into his cubicle. She's standing right at that entranceway. And somebody had called out her name, and when she turned with that cup of coffee in her hand, she hit the side wall of the cubicle, and the coffee spilled down onto the floor. And Garrett, he witnessed this. And because of that, he had some sort of uncontrollable urge to flee, to leave immediately. He couldn't even explain it. I mean, it was so uncontrollable. It was like compulsive. And that's exactly what he did. He reached over and he grabbed that 8x10 photograph of he and his mother that was taken years back when he was in his teens. He scooped that picture up and he is gone. He didn't even take the elevator. This dude is out the stairways, running down the stairway for the fire exit, you know, one of those, and he is gone, man. Pew! So here he is running as fast as he can run with that picture in hand of he and his mother when he was younger. I mean, he is almost out of breath. He's about a block away, and he has no idea what enticed him to flee because he watched Barbara spill her cup of coffee. It's about the 2-minute mark, and suddenly a small Learjet smashes into the second floor of that building and kaboom! Boy, it's a mess, buddy. Wow. So Garrett is standing there in awe, in disbelief. I mean, he can't even believe it because moments earlier he was on the second floor. And because Barbara had spilled her coffee and he witnessed her coffee being spilled, it was at that precise moment some sort of feeling, overwhelming feeling to flee, literally overtook him. And he did. And thank goodness he did. Because guess what, ladies and gentlemen? Garrett was the sole survivor. He sure was. Every single person on that entire floor, there's about 63 other employees, they're all perished. They sure did. Matter of fact, when he got home that afternoon, he turned on the TV, breaking news and his big old story, right? And they're trying to figure out who the person was that was flying the plane, what was their names, you know, how old they were, and why it is that it lost control, and why it is that all those people on that floor perished, right? And that they were trying to identify all of these people so they could notify next of kin. So Garrett ate a little bit of supper, and he's dumbfounded. He just can't even imagine what has happened to him. And what saved his life is the fact that Barbara herself, the person that hired him, she spilt that cup of coffee because somebody called out her name. And he starts going through all the particulars thinking, well, what if she didn't spill the coffee? What if somebody didn't call out her name? He's going through all this stuff. And it became overwhelming. So he decided, you know what, I got to go to sleep. I'm tired. I'm exhausted, right? So he lays his head down about 9 p.m. He goes to sleep. He gets up at 05:30, but he has no place to go because the second floor is annihilated because of the small plane that had went into the second floor. He turns on the television, you know, and they're doing updates of what happened the previous day. And he sees his picture on the television stating that he is either perished or he is presumed perished, right? And he's dumbfounded again. He's like, wait a minute, I'm right here. So he immediately picks up the phone. He calls the police department. He says, hello, my name is Garrett. You know, I was working at the building, the second floor for the IRS, you know, in the fraud division, and I'm alive. I'm alive. And the person that he spoke with at the police department says, you know, Garrett, that's fantastic, but I just wanted to inform you that you are the sole survivor of that whole incident. And he gets to thinking to himself, he goes, wow, that's a shame because He kind of liked Barbara, and Barbara gave him a chance, you know what I mean? She hired him when he needed that job the most, but now he's back in the same exact situation that he was before he even started. So now he's got even more baggage to deal with. First he had his mother and all that nonsense going on, and now he has a situation where he's working for the IRS subsidiary, where in the fraud division he was really liking the job. He was there on time every day. They were going to do an audit, and next thing you know, a plane goes flying into the second floor and everybody's gone but him. So here he is. He's in a state of mourning yet again. So a couple of days go by and he goes, you know what? This is horrible. I got to get me another job. I have got to get me another job. This is out of control. So he decided that he was going to work again in a financial type of position, but this time he was going to be working for a company that deals specifically with utilities. So people that don't pay their utility bill, instead of going to a secondary collection agency, they do it internally first to try to acquire the money. So it's not under fraud or anything. It's just like delinquent or late pay, those sorts of things. So he goes in there and he goes to apply, and the person that's interviewing, his name is Robert. He's an older gentleman. And once again, he's trying to explain to Robert that, you know, his mother had passed away, he was in college, and he went through that whole scene. And then, of course, he made mention that he was working at the IRS subsidiary. He was in the fraud division, and then suddenly a Learjet decided that it was going to do a Peter Pan into the second floor. And the person interviewing him, again, his name was Robert, said to him, wow, dude, you are the sole survivor. He goes, that's fascinating just in itself. Can you kind of tell me what happened? Garrett goes, I just don't want to get into it, because it is kind of bizarre that a woman spills her coffee and he has some overwhelming urge to flee and he flees. That is bizarre, and it is bizarre. So he just didn't want to talk about it because it's kind of unbelievable. So once again, Garrett says to Robert, he goes, listen, I need this job. He goes, you can pay me the least amount. I don't need the money. I really don't need the money. But I need the job. I need some positive energy. Please hire me. Well, Robert got to thinking about it, and there's nothing really to think about. He was a sole survivor. I mean, that's a good thing, right? That's like a good omen. You want somebody around you that's a sole survivor, right? Oh, absolutely. Well, Robert hires them right away. They don't even have a drug test or a background check, you know? Not initially, not of that certain area, because he's not dealing in any sort of cash or secret information. Just account information. It's not a big deal, right? So he says, okay, what I want you to do is I want you to start Monday morning. We start at 8 p.m. here. And, sometimes we take half an hour break. Sometimes we have half days. It just depends. He's like, yeah, no problem. Now, the building in which he's working now is a 2-story building. And they are on the second floor. So he's working there for months. He's having a good time. He's got positive energy. He has something to do. He can kind of like shake the negative energy of his mother passing away. He can shake the negative energy of what happened when he was working for the IRS subsidiary in the fraud division when that Learjet decided to take a Peter Pan into the second floor, right? And he's a soldier. He can shake all that. He's doing well. He's doing great. Now, it was a Tuesday afternoon at about 1 p.m. And Robert, the very same person that hired him, he's just kind of perusing around, and he says to Garrett, he says, hey, Garrett, you want a soda pop? Because they had a big old, like a snack bar in the little break room there in the whole 9 yards. And Garrett's like, nah, I don't drink soda pop. He goes, are you sure? He goes, yeah, I'm sure. He goes, man, I tell you what, the prices of these soda pops and these machines, they want $1.50 each. I mean, that's out of control. So he goes in there and he gets himself a pop, and he's holding the pop, and he twists it's one of those plastic bottles for Pepsi, and when it comes rolling out of the machine, he opens up, psst, and the liquid of the pop spills over and starts falling all over the floor. I mean, it's pretty, you know how it is, right? When you shake up a soda pop and that just, it's everywhere, right? Big old mess. Garrett witnesses this again. He sure does. And he gets this overwhelming feeling that he needs to flee. Well, you see, Garrett has been, he's already been through this once before. And when his stomach, when his gut tells him he needs to flee, guess what? He needs to flee now. He sure does. He turns around and he reaches over and he grabs the same picture of him and his mother that he had framed. He grabs that and he's gone, buddy. I mean, he is gone. And he is running so fast, he's almost out of breath where he's going to have a heart attack. Now, there's a 7-Eleven that is catty corner from that building, and he races into the 7-Eleven, and he's looking at his time to see how long, it's been. And by the time he gets to the 7-Eleven, it's been about 1 minute and 15 seconds. So for him to get from the second floor down the stairs, out the door, down the street, catty corner to the 7-Eleven, in the door, he turns around and grabs himself some candy bars, and he's going up to the cashier, and he's visibly shaken. He's looking at the building, and he's looking at the cashier, and the cashier's like, "Mister, are you okay?" And he's not saying a word. He keeps looking out the window over at the building, right? He's like, "How much do I owe you?" She's like, $4.50. And he's reaching his pocket and he's trying to get the money, and he keeps looking out the window at that building. And about the 2-minute mark, ba-boom! The entire first and second floor is blown to smithereens. It sure is. And he is dumbfounded. His jaw about hits the floor. He's like, what the? And we're talking the entire first and second floor is annihilated. It sure is. He races out the door of the 7-Eleven, and he is running and running and he's trying to run home, man. He is just, oh man, he is out of his mind. He gets home, he turns on the television. Breaking news once again, right? And he's like, oh my, he can't even believe it. And then he starts to reminisce about the first time around when he saw Barbara and she had the cup of coffee and she spilled the liquid and it came out of the cup, and he had this overwhelming urge to flee, and he did. It saved his life. And then here you have Robert. He goes to get a soda pop, and it spills everywhere, and he witnesses this. And it was an accident, both with Barbara and with Robert. He's like, man, what is going on? Well, hours and hours and hours and hours went by, and it was determined between the first and the second floor, there was 425 people between both floors, and all of them are gone, buddy. They sure are. But guess what? It's determined once again, Garrett, is the sole survivor. He sure is. But it was very interesting, see, because during one of the news reports, as he's watching the television there, he recognizes the woman that was at 7-Eleven when he went into 7-Eleven to get those candy bars, as he's looking at the window at the building, and he's trying to pay for the candy bars. And she's telling the reporter, she goes, it's the weirdest thing. Some guy came in, and he was visibly shaken, and he kept looking at the building. And this was only moments before it just blew into smithereens. And the reporter's like, what? He goes, so what did he look like? She goes, well, he was clean cut. He looked like a businessman. He was wearing a nice shirt and a tie, but he was visibly shaken. He's thinking to himself, oh no, that's not going to look good, right? So here we go again. He decides he's going to eat a little bit of supper. And he finally goes to bed. About 9, 10 o'clock, right? Well, he gets up at 5:30 in the morning. But he doesn't have anywhere to go because once again, the place in which he was working for on the second floor for the utilities, right? You know, where people late payments and all that sort of stuff. It's not there anymore because it's blown to smithereens, right? He turns on the television, and guess what? He sees his picture up there that was taken from a 7-Eleven security camera. And they got his full name under there, and they're saying person of interest, right? He's thinking, oh no. He's thinking, oh, I hope they don't think I had anything. I ain't got nothing to... And it started getting panicky, you know what I mean? So as he's watching the television there and all the news reports, and they're interviewing this one and that one, it was determined that the reason why the building blew into smithereens is because of a gas leak. He has nothing to do with that. So why did they sport his photograph as if he had something to do with it, right? Yeah, it was a mess. But needless to say, it doesn't matter, because just because it was a gas leak doesn't necessarily mean that he didn't have anything to do with it. It's starting to look positive that he had nothing to do with it, but at the same time, you know what? It was a gas leak. So he was a little bit jumpy about it. He decided to pick up the phone. He called the FBI field office of that particular area, and he's like, hey, listen, my name is Garrett. You know, I saw my picture on there. You're saying I'm a person of interest, or somebody is, and I want to come clear my name. So they said, come on down. We want to talk to you anyway. So he takes an Uber. He goes down to the FBI field office. He walks in, and they're not very respectful to him. I'll tell you that right now. The first thing that happens as soon as he walks in that door and he announces who he is, they're like searching him, wanting him, and all that stuff, right? They get him in there and they sit him down, and an Agent Williams and an Agent Myers comes in the office, and they introduce themselves as such. This is Agent Myers. I'm Agent Williams. We'd like to talk to you about what happened yesterday. Why don't you tell us why it is that you were at a 7-Eleven looking out the window in some sort of, agony, or you're all jumpy in that, just moments before that building blew to smithereens. Why don't you explain that to us? Well, you see, old Garrett there, he, if you remember, he was going to school, to college there, and he was studying constitutional law, because he knows all about that. He sure does. And what he told the agents there, he goes, it's kind of the darndest thing. He goes, I don't talk to the authorities without counsel. And seeing that I don't have any counsel here, I'm not talking to you. Agent Myers and Agent Williams, they get up, they leave the room. He's sitting in that room. He's not handcuffed, he's just sitting at a table. Of course, they got the mirror there, they're just kind of looking at him, and they're having a little powwow. Because what he just said is absolutely right. He doesn't have to talk to anybody without counsel. In other words, without an attorney. And guess what? The authorities have to respect that and leave him alone. They can't question him any longer. They have to either arrest him, detain him, put him on a 72-hour hold or whatever the hell it is. But guess what? There's a thing called habeas corpus, and he knows that. That stands for due process, right? He's not dumb. He wants to go down there and clear his name, sure, but he's not going to go talk to the FBI and all these agents that are treating him so badly, and acting like he's some sort of criminal. He's just not going to do it. So Agent Myers, Agent Williams decide they need to keep him there for a couple hours, because guess what they're going to do? Seeing that they don't have enough evidence to arrest him on anything, because they don't. All they know is that they have him on camera through the security cameras at 7-Eleven of him getting all jumpy and squirrely looking out the window as he's paying for candy bars. That's all they have. They don't have any, reason why he would do such a thing. They don't have any motive. They're going through, you got Agent Williams and Agent Myers are going through all his finances, right? They're going through his credit card receipts. They're going through his phone, his text messages, all calls coming in, out. They're doing a full audit of this dude. You bet on that. They sure are. But they need to keep him there a couple of hours. Well, why is that? Because they're going to bug his house. They're going to put in cameras. They're going to put in microphones all throughout his house. They're going to put GPS in his phone above and beyond the GPS that's already in there. I'm telling you what, they are going to do surveillance like nobody's business. Well, they can't do anything as far as his car is concerned because he doesn't have a car. He takes Uber or he walks. But they're going to light this dude up for sure. Okay? So they get a warrant to do all this stuff, put in cameras, put in listening devices, the whole 9 yards in his house. They mess with his phone to such a way where they can monitor him in real time above and beyond the GPS that's already in the phone. Oh boy, it's ugly. But they got to keep him there at the office for a couple of hours. So they go back in and they say, okay, we understand that you're requesting counsel. Do you have an attorney? And he goes, no, I don't have an attorney, and this is why I'm not going to talk to you. Because it's my constitutional right not to talk to you. Seeing that you're recording every syllable out of my mouth, if you have any questions on why I'm not going to talk to you, simply rewind the tape. Because I don't have counsel. That's exactly right. So they're just trying to stall him to get some sort of reason on why he's still there. And they haven't arrested him yet. So again, he says, excuse me, am I under arrest? Agent Williams and Agent Myers says, no, you're not under arrest, but you are being detained, buddy. You are being detained. He goes, I'll tell you what, because I understand constitutional law, do know that if you keep detaining me without any sort of charges or without probable cause, you do know that that sets you up for a lawsuit under civil tort. You do know that. And Agent Myers and Agent Williams, they're not real happy with this guy because they don't like people like that. They don't like people that know the Constitution. They don't like people that know the law. They don't like it because that means you're not going to talk to them. And they don't like that. So they're stalling and stalling and stalling. About an hour and 45 minutes goes by. Agent Myers, Agent Williams, they get a call in from the tech division of the FBI. They say, we're all set. We got them all bugged up. You can go ahead and let them go. So they notify Garrett that he's not to leave the state. He is not to leave the country without their written consent under any circumstances, no matter what. So Garrett finds his way back to his house. He's just watching television, whatever he does, thinking to himself, well, they didn't arrest me. That's a good thing. I didn't do anything wrong, and he really didn't do anything wrong. So, a couple of weeks go by. Here we go again. I tell you what, old Garrett, he's getting cabin fever. He can't stand this already. So he goes for yet another job. But the job that he's going to work at this time is going to be a distributing house for candy bars, oddly enough, because he did go into 7-Eleven to get the candy bars while at the same time, ba-boom, right? And it was just, luck of the draw. So he goes in there and he's talking to a woman named Marcia. Marcia is going to turn around, and she's about not quite the exact same age as him, because he's in his mid-20s. She's maybe 1 or 2 years older. She says, I tell you what, Garrett, you seem like a nice enough guy. And she goes, God, you look so familiar. And then he goes, well, the reason why I might look familiar, you might have seen me on the news because, well, I was the sole survivor of that, incident that happened down there at the utilities business, the gas leak. He's trying to remind her it's a gas leak. It's not him, right? She goes, wow, that's fascinating. Whoa, and here we go again. He's hired with that company, right? And what they do is they receive all of these different candy bars from all the different candy manufacturers. Like you got the Mars and Almond Joy, and then you got O. Henry, Three Musketeers, and Twix, and Skittles, and you name it. And then they repackage with all these other candy bars, and they sell them out of country for the most part, or to other distributors throughout the nation. That's what they do, right? Well, Garrett decided he was going to work in the packaging part. In other words, when the truck pulls up, they got all the boxes of all the candy and all that stuff. And then they repackage it and they distribute it out throughout the nation internationally. So he's going to work basically in packaging or receiving, right? So they got the warehouse. Now this was only one floor. It was more of a warehouse setting. There was only 23 people, including him. So 22 other people outside of him, right? So he's thinking if anything goes wrong, well, it's not going to be hundreds of people, and it's not going to be 63 people. If something goes wrong, we're only talking 22 people, including himself, 23. Because he's having all these weird thoughts, right? Well, you see, one of the ladies that he was working with, in other words, one of the other employees, her name was Ashley. Ashley's a good-looking gal. Whoo! Really good-looking. She's got really nice eyes, if you get my meaning, fellas, right? Long hair, pretty eyes, just gorgeous smile. I mean, she should be a model. She should be working in packaging. I mean, really? So they get to know each other over a course of time. He's there for several weeks, months by now. And he's getting acclimated. He really knows how to do his job to the point where he can take breaks and all that nonsense. You know how it is, fellas. So here it is, about a Tuesday afternoon, just after lunch. In other words, everybody just came back from lunch, right? So it's creeping up at about not quite 1 o'clock. And Ashley walks over to Garrett and says, "Hey, Garrett, I understand that you were the sole survivor of that incident that occurred over there at that utilities place, right?" She goes, what happened just minutes before, you ran away from there? Can you tell me? He goes, I really don't want to talk about it because, I got a new life. I'm doing this job here. I like this job. And, why even talk about it? It's not even necessary. And she kind of leans over his desk and gives him a free show, if you get my meaning, right? The old booby trap. And he falls for it. He's like, well, I guess I could talk to you about it. He goes, well, what happened was, this guy named Robert, the guy that actually hired me, he went and got a soda pop, and, I guess when it came out of the machine, it was like clunking around in that. And then when he opened it up, it leaked, and I had some like uncontrollable urge to run away and to escape. It was really strange, and I reached over and I grabbed this photograph, like the one I got right here, of me and my mother, when I was younger, and out the door I went, and it's just so strange. She goes, well, what enticed you to do that? He goes, well, previously when I worked for the IRS, remember that 3-story building on the second floor where that Learjet went flying into? Yeah, I was a sole survivor on that one too. And what happened with that is Barbara, she had a big old cup of coffee, and somebody called her name, and she clowned the side of the cubicle there and spilled her and I had the same sort of feeling. And Ashley is looking at him like, what? And she starts getting real smarmy with him. Like, listen, Garrett, are you just making fun of me because I'm female? Is this a joke? Because it's not very funny. You think I'm dumb, don't you? I mean, you're trying to tell me that you're the sole survivor of 2 major incidences in less than a year, and the reason why is because people spilled coffee or soda pop? Are you kidding me, Garrett? Why are you saying this? Do you think I'm dumb? Garrett's like, well, that's what happened. I swear, that's what happened. She goes, you know what? She goes, you know what? I'll be right back. Ashley goes to the water dispenser and she gets a cup of water in a see-through cup. She has the water there. Garrett, he was sitting down, but now he's standing up. He's like, what are you doing? She goes, she has this cup of water. She's like, oh, look, Garrett. I got this entire company in my hand. I sure do. I could spill it. He's like, don't do that. That's not funny. That's not funny. This is not funny. You're making a big old joke out of it. This is not funny. Stop that. You know what? I never should have told her. She's like, I could spill it, and she does spill it on purpose. And he witnesses it. Once again, his heart starts racing, and he has some uncontrollable, just absolutely some sort of invisible influence to flee again. He is so petrified, he reaches over and he grabs the photograph of he and his mother. And he clutches it as tight as he can, and out the bay door he goes, because they got one of these big old garage doors that go up, for, well, you got all the packages coming in, right? He's out the door, man. He is gone. And he is racing down the road. He's running just as fast as he can go, right? He gets down about a block and a half, and he's looking at the building, right? Because he can just barely see it, because it's only a one story, see? But you had the bay door that was open, right? The big old garage door for all the trucks to come in. And he's looking at his watch, and here we go. It's creeping up on about 2 minutes, boy. And right when it hits about 2 minutes from the time he ran out of there, or what he figured it was, right? This enormous ball of fire comes flying out of the bay door. It is so explosive that some of the ceiling collapses right there, in the same exact facility that he was just standing in. Oh yeah. Yep. Unbelievable. Because here we go yet again. He finds himself to his house, turns on the television, breaking news, the whole 9 yards. Here we go again. But you see, he's already been through this before. He's got the FBI that was questioning him. But by this time, he has an attorney. He sure does. He's got one on retention. He sure does, in case he ever needs him. Well, now he needs him. He sure does. He places a call into his attorney. He says, listen, man, I'm in big trouble, and I haven't even done anything wrong. He's like, well, what's the problem? He goes, okay, I got a job here at this candy bar distribution center, and he went through the whole 9 yards. And his attorney couldn't believe it, because it sounds unbelievable. He told him about the first one, the IRS, right, when he was doing work for the subsidiary for the IRS in the fraud division, about how Barbara spilled her coffee by accident, all right? Then he went to the utilities place, and you had Robert, and he spilled the Pepsi by accident. And now he was working over at yet another place for the candy distributor. He was doing for packaging and such. And Ashley, she actually did it on purpose. But in all three cases, he had some overwhelming feeling to flee. And he told his attorney's name was Miles, and he was an old school attorney. He'd been in the business for like 42 years. Everybody knew him. Every judge in the city knew him, all right? All the prosecutors knew him. All the insurance. Listen, everybody knows Miles. Miles is an old school attorney, and he's good at what he does, too. He sure is, right? So Miles says, listen, I tell you what we need to do. I'm going to race over to your house. I'm going to come pick you up. We need to go down to the FBI field office. We need to have a little talk with Agent Myers and Agent Williams, because it's going to get ugly, and it's going to get ugly quick. So let's go ahead and nip it in the bud right away. That's what he advises them. He goes, whatever you do, you are not to tell Agent Myers, and you're not to tell Agent Williams anything about this coffee, Pepsi, water nonsense. Because if you do, one, they're not going to believe you. And two, they're going to look into you even further, because it's so preposterous, right? He goes, yes, sir. I'll wait. So he races over. He goes to pick up Garrett. They go to the FBI field office. And they announce who they are. Here we go again. They wand him. They're patting him down, all that nonsense, including his attorney. They go upstairs. Agent Williams, Agent Myers are sitting down there. He's not handcuffed or anything like that. His attorney's sitting right next to him. And they go through his name. They go through his date of birth. They're recording everything, okay? That's all there is to it. But now he has his attorney there. So he can speak with them freely, not freely, but under some sort of restraint when the attorney says he can answer a question or he can't. He's the witness, right? And of course you have attorney-client privilege, so, Garrett could tell his attorney anything, and his attorney can't tell anybody else, right? Because that would be a conflict of interest and a violation, ethics violation of the attorney-client privilege, right? So Agent Myers is asking him a question, and his attorney says, yes, you can go ahead and answer that one. Agent Williams is asking another question. He's like, no, you don't answer that one. Oh, they're getting mad, you know what I mean? Agent Williams asks him another, yeah, you can answer that question. You see what I mean? So he's very confined on what's going on, right? So essentially, what did the FBI get? The FBI got nothing. But here we go again, ladies and gentlemen. It was determined that what happened at the candy bar distribution facility was, when you saw the big fireball coming out of the bay door there, it was intentional. It sure was. Because somebody got angry somewhere in the world or somewhere in the United States, and they sent a very large package to that facility in which someone touched that package and kaboomers. It was intentional. Just as Ashley, when she spilled the water, it was intentional. Whereas when Barbara had the cup of coffee and somebody called out her name over at the IRS before the plane, decided to do a Peter Pan on the second floor, that was an accident. The plane that fell into the second floor, that was an accident too. When Robert opened up his Pepsi and it spilled all over the floor, that too was an accident. When the building was blown to smithereens, that was an accident as well because of a gas leak. Whereas now you have the candy distributor, the packaging house that he used to work at, because he ain't going to work there no more because the building isn't even available to work anymore. You had Ashley on purpose spill the water. Oddly enough, the reason why that place went up in flames is because somebody sent a package on purpose just for that reason. Oh, it's a mess, boy. It's a mess. So he's thinking to himself, he goes, oh my God, this is just crazy. It's determined the very next day. Once again, Garrett is the sole survivor. He sure is. Well, this is something else, isn't it? It's quite the story. Because it's going to get even deeper. It sure is. A couple of more days go by and he's about had it. He goes, you know what? I'm going to go work for somebody, even smaller. He's going to try to work for a company that has like 5 employees, if he can find one. And he's always had this thing to work for Spencer's, because Spencer's has really cool stuff, doesn't it? He goes there and applies, and he's talking to him. He says, listen, I really need this job. I had my mother pass away, and I had the incident. And he's trying to explain this to the person that is going to hire him. And the guy goes, whoa, you're the sole survivor? Wow, it's an honor, dude. I mean, this is fantastic. He goes, man, you're like good luck. You're hired. He's kind of a quirky individual, right? The guy that hires him. But the good thing is there's only 6 employees, including him. So there's only 5 employees. You got like the manager, you got the cashiers, and you got somebody stocking, and then him, right? Maybe, the owner. That's it. So he goes to working there at Spencer's. He's only there a couple of days. He's looking at all the little gadgets and all the little things and all these they got all these like jokester cards and like whoopee cushion, stuff like that, right? He's just having a good time, right? So they're going to set him up on stocking first, kind of get acclimated where everything's at, and then they'll move him up to cashier. Well, he's only there a couple of days, and one of the cashiers, he's been working there like years. He goes, hey, man, look at all of these gadgets. This is just wild. I love this place. This is awesome. It's like coming to a museum, except all the stuff is for sale. He goes, yeah, I know. He goes, what's this over here? What's this gadget? He goes, oh, well, that there is these are like mini microphones and mini cameras and like spy cams and stuff where they're so tiny it's like a little pin you put on. It's perfect quality and all this stuff. He goes, man, that's fascinating. He goes, you know what? You hear about it all the time. All these like politicians and stuff, they have mansions and carrying on and about, and what's going on with that? Yeah, these guys put bugs in that all over every. He goes, would you find out that your place is bugged? And the guy that'd been there for years and years, he goes, you know what? They got sweepers. They come in, they sweep your whole house to find all these little, microphones and cameras and all that, because everything puts off some sort of electronic signature if it has a little circuit board or something like that. He goes, you know what? As much, as much interaction that I've had with the FBI, I wouldn't doubt it if they got my whole place bugged. You wouldn't mind coming out to sweep my house. Do you know how to do it? Well, the guy over there, his name's Corey. He goes, of course I know how to do it. He goes, well, what would you charge me? He goes, about $200. He goes, dude, I'll give you $5 if you do it today. He goes, no, I can't do it today. $1,000 if you do it today. He goes, yeah, I can do it today. So he gets this equipment. He brings it over to Garrett's house. And Corey's been working there for years, right? So he trusts him. He goes in there and he starts sweeping his house. Guess what? They find 28 cameras and listening devices for real in Garrett's house. There are 4 cameras just in the bedroom for real. There's even a camera in the shower. You believe all that? That's invasion of privacy. That is just wrong. I don't care if you get a warrant or not. And they've been in there for a very, very long time. They've been in there since the time he was working at the utilities place, right? For delinquent payment and all that. They've been in there since then. So Garrett says, so what do I do with all these things? Oh, Corey says, well, you know what you could do? You put them in the microwave. You put them in there for like 30 seconds each, and it'll just fry all their innards, and they'll be done with it. He goes, another thing, you put them in a bag and take out a sledgehammer and clunk it all up, or you can throw it down the sewer, who knows what. He goes, but here's the thing, dude. I'm going to tell you right now. These things look like they came from the government. And if you destroy their property, they're going to turn around and charge you for it. For real. Even though they have all this stuff in your house. But they got a warrant for it, buddy. So if you destroy their property, they're going to charge you for it. I bet you they will. They'll file criminal charges for you destroying their property that they had a warrant to put in your house. Oh, Garrett's thinking to himself, wait a minute, there was a camera in the shower? He goes, how many showers have I taken? You got some fed, behind some monitor, monitoring my monitor, right? He is infuriated, right? So, because he's so angry, Garrett turns around and he puts all of the cameras and listening devices in a bag. He takes it out on the back patio bench. He takes a hammer and he crushes them all up. He sure does. He pays Corey $500, sends him on his way. He goes to sleep that night, right? And about 7 o'clock in the morning, he gets a ding dong on his door. Oh, Garrett, he's in his robe, right? He's like walking to the door. He's got to be at work at 8 anyway, right? But still, he's a little overslept. All that excitement the night before. He just cracks the door and 15 frickin' FBI dudes come rolling in that door. Put your hand there, please. They're like, you know what? You're under arrest now, buddy. You sure are. Under arrest for what? What did I do? He goes, you just destroyed about $25,000 worth of our equipment that we had a warrant to put in your house. You're being a funny? You're under arrest. Put your hands behind your back. They did, too. They arrested him for the destruction of government property. Something else, boy. I tell you what, it's just something else. Whew. So off to jail he goes. Within 2 hours, he turns around, bails himself out, and calls his attorney the whole 9 yards. His attorney's looking at this and goes, man, this is wrong. This is just wrong. He goes, wow, that's crazy. They had even cameras in the shower. That's just wrong. And you see, Corey And Garrett, they were smart about everything. They're taking video of all the places that they're finding these cameras before they removed them out of the walls and cupboards. And they had listening devices at the front door. They had listening devices at the back door, in the kitchen cabinets, and in the bathroom, in his bedroom, in the den. I mean, it's just crazy, right? So they have record of everything, where everything was at. They sure do. But the feds don't know that. But they're going to know it soon. They sure are. So, during his initial arraignment, of course they asked him how does he plead, and he said, not guilty. Let's go to trial, buddy. I'm going to get me a jury, too. Because, see, old Garrett, he's got something to his side. And what's that? He knows constitutional law. He sure does. Isn't that great? Plus, he has an attorney that's been in the business for over 40 years, and everybody knows him. It's going to be a win-win, let me tell you. So a couple of weeks go by, and he's going to go to trial. He sure is. Well, you see, what happened was the prosecuting attorney came to him and says, listen, I tell you what, we're willing to cut a deal. If you cop to this, that, and the other, and all this nonsense, I tell you what, we'll drop it down, we'll give you a fine, and we'll send you on your way. Garrett looks at that the district attorney, or excuse me, the attorney that is representing the feds or the government themselves. He goes, no. The only reason why the government set up the plea bargain is so that they can win. That's it. That means you have nothing, I have everything, and you want to plead with me because you're pleading, please, cop to this and we'll give you that. That's what that's all about, and I'm not stupid. So, you're in the wrong, let's go to trial. I'm going all the way. She's furious, because he won't take the plea agreement, right? And he ain't gonna either. And he doesn't have to, he shouldn't have to. So he goes to trial, and they do have a jury sitting up there, right? I tell you what, Miles gets up there and does big old Perry Mason. He's talking about, well, excuse me, ladies and gentlemen. And I tell you what, a lot of the people on the jury, they're females. That's a good thing, too. It sure is. Doesn't even matter their education, their age, or anything. The fact that they're female is wonderful. And why is that? Well, Miles uses that to his advantage and says, ladies and gentlemen, to the jury, let me ask you a question. How would you like it for anybody, regardless if it was a federal agent, your neighbor, somebody in your family, that they have cameras in your bedroom and in your shower? Is that okay? That's invasion of privacy to the highest form. Does the FBI really need to have cameras in the man's bedroom and in the bathroom? Listening devices is something different. But video cameras? Come on, people. And he goes on and on and on and on. And he's got a lot of bravado about it, right? And then, of course, the attorney that's representing the feds and stuff, she tries to get up there and says, well, you know, you had all these people, you have hundreds of people that have perished, and, you know, because this guy, why is this guy the sole survivor? This is crazy. Something's wrong with this picture. And because of national security, they pull that card. You know, we had to monitor him. We don't know who's involved. I mean, we're talking about actual property. We're talking about actual human beings that are, you know, they're here today and they're gone tomorrow. And he has been involved in all of them. We have to protect. Wrong. That doesn't work. Fail. The jury goes in to try to make a decision to find out if Garrett's guilty. They come out in 10 minutes. You know what that means. Yeah. Not guilty. Not guilty, not guilty, not guilty, not guilty, not guilty, not guilty. All of it's not guilty. Right? But why? Because the way Miles, that attorney that has been in the business over 40 years, is laying it out. Who cares if they had a warrant? Who cares? You don't put 4 cameras in somebody's bedroom. You don't put a camera in somebody's shower because you're trying to monitor them or surveil them. Stop it already. This is not a totalitarian government. Sorry, wrong. We do have what is called rights. Right? Fourth Amendment. There you go. They drop all the charges. He's free to go. There's nothing on his record. You know, it's on record they went to trial and all that. Don't get me wrong. So, Garrett is so appreciative to his attorney. Oh, he's giving a big old hug and a handshake and the whole 9 yards. He says, listen, Miles, I'd like to take you to supper. I'd like you to take you to supper. There's a little pub down the way. It's a couple of blocks from here. I pass by, you know, on occasion. And why don't we go there, have a couple of drinks and some supper? Oh, Miles gets thinking. He goes, well, yeah, sure, why not? But you know what? Do you want to sue the federal government? Do you still want to do that? Because that was his intention. If he won, in other words, if he got off and it was not guilty, well, Miles is going to turn right back around and sue the federal government for invasion of privacy. He goes, damn right I want to sue him. He goes, listen, I'll tell you what, Garrett. I'll meet you over there, let's say about 7 o'clock, because I got to follow all this other paperwork to sue these clowns. He's like, right on. So 7 o'clock rolls around. Old Garrett there, he's sitting there and he's waiting for him. It's like a diner and they got a bar and the whole 9 yards, right? He's sitting there and he's waiting for Miles to show up. Miles does show up. They sit down and this place is packed. Oh, it's a real nice place too. You got all the little seats in that, and then you got a bar that's shaped like an L. And then on this side of the L, you walk out the door and there's like outdoor dining. You know what I mean? Yeah, it's a real nice place. So they go in there and they order their food and they order a couple of drinks. And they eat their food and they're talking. They're hoo-hoo and hawing and laughing and carrying on. And boy, we got them good and you did a great job. And I love that part where you said to the jury about, invasion of privacy and the can. They're going on and on and on and on, right? They're having a great time because they are the winning party. Right? So anyway, it's about, I don't know, maybe 9:30. Well, you see, this little bar/diner is going to close at about 12 o'clock. That's where they kick everybody out, you know what I'm saying? So, old Miles says, you know what? I'm going to need to go. And Garrett is loving this. He's loving this. He's like, dude, don't be going. He goes, let me buy you one more beer. Let me buy you just one more. Miles like, okay, because it was pretty victorious. He took on the government. He stomped on them, right? He's like, yeah, okay. One beer turned into 2, turned into 3, turned into 4. You know how it is. Hell, it's about 10:30, 11 o'clock by now. Oh, Garrett, he's got to go drain. You got me? So he gets up to go to the bathroom, and he starts walking out, and who does he see? He sees the attorney that was representing the federal government, and she's at the same diner, and she's pissed. She's very angry, and she's been drinking quite a bit. Now, you see, Miles is sitting down at the table still, kind of oblivious that the attorney that was representing the federal government is walking his direction with a glass of wine. But Garrett is seeing this from a distance as he's walking closer. And this woman is so obnoxious, and she's so angry, and she's so drunk. She's got her glass of wine, and she goes, so you think you're a real hotshot because you take on the government and you come up with some Perry Mason bullshit and all I heard you do, Miles, was whine. So you know what? Have some wine. She spills a whole glass of wine all over Miles's face. Garrett sees this. He witnesses this. He's like, oh my gosh. And he gets this uncontrollable urge to flee. And flee he does, man. He's out that door, buddy. He's running just as fast as he can. And he goes across the street. And it's one of these kind of streets that you go across the street and then you go across the main street and then you go across, like a frontage road type thing, where you got a little street there where everybody parks and that. Not a parking lot, but in that area. And then there's a curb, and then you got the main street, right? About 2 lanes on each side. Not a freeway, just a big street. And then you got another frontage road, and he sits over there, and he sat at a bench, right? It's pretty far away. So if something happens, he's going to be safe, right? He's sitting there at that bench, and he's looking at his clock, boy. He's got about a minute left until something's going to happen. He doesn't know what, but something is going to happen, right? He's sitting there, and he says, oh, no. Well, Miles is in there. Of course, Miles is probably duking it out with that attorney that was representing the federal government, right? And he's just waiting. 2 minutes comes up. A black van pulls up. 4 guys jump out. They got ski masks. They're wearing all black. And they have these automatic metal protectors. They sure do. And they walk in that restaurant there and you hear, I mean, they're getting crazy, right? Here we go again, ladies and gentlemen. Out of all of the wait staff, out of the cooks, out of the managerials or the managers that were there, all of the customers, pick anybody there, all of them are gone. They sure are. Because 4 guys decided that they were going to rob that diner. And they just happened to eliminate all of the witnesses. And once again, Garrett is the sole survivor. Because you see, the woman that was representing the federal government when she had that glass of wine, she on purpose splashed the wine. Well, oddly enough, those 4 individuals that robbed the diner, bar/diner, it was on purpose that they robbed it. But here's the catch. See, the FBI, even though that they lost the case in court the same exact day that they all were partying and all that stuff, they were still surveilling him. And oddly enough, they were sitting out front of that diner, monitoring his every word. And they saw him, and they have him on video, Garrett, racing out of the building moments before 4 men pop out of a van and rob the diner and eliminate all the witnesses. Well, guess what they do? As he's sitting over there on the bench, the FBI scoop him up just that quick. They sure do. Yeah. And they bring him down to the office. Here you go. You got Agent Myers and Agent Williams. They're saying, now listen here, Garrett. We know that your attorney was in the diner. We have you on video racing out of that building. We sure do. We have you on video, Garrett. There's no escape. We're still monitoring you. You are still under surveillance because you are a national security threat. So you can take all your constitutional mumbo-jumbo garbage and you can throw it right out the window. Because if you remember, Garrett, and all of your constitutional learnings and law and all that nonsense, you will know that the first NDAA was put into action in 1961. And every single president above and beyond that has made sure that the NDAA carries on year after year after year. 1987, 1992, 1998, 2008 was a very famous year for the NDAA, which is the Non-Defense Authorization Act, because some additions were added to it in 2008, which would constitute that you, Garrett, are an enemy combatant, which means under national security provisions, we can incarcerate you indefinitely without habeas corpus. And you know that we're right, Garrett. So I tell you what you're going to do. Garrett, you're going to talk to us, because if you do not talk to us, we are going to arrest you immediately. We're not going to give you the Miranda warning because you're not going to trial. You are going to be incarcerated indefinitely as an enemy combatant. Do we make ourselves clear? You will talk to us. Because if you don't, that's what's going to happen. And Garrett is having a little conversation with himself. He's like, oh gosh, if I talk to these people, a lot of the questions are going to be yes and no type questions. The ones I say no on and the ones I say yes on, they mess with the audio tape. I'll go to trial. I'll be incarcerated anyway. If I don't talk to them, they're going to arrest me as an enemy combatant. They're going to toss me in a cage somewhere for the rest of my life. I will never have it. He's in a bad spot. So he looks at Agent Williams. He says, listen, I tell you what, can I get a glass of water and I'll talk to you? Agent Williams is like, Myers, you hear that? He's going to talk to us and all he wants is a glass of water. You believe that? It's crazy, isn't it? He goes, you got it, sport. I tell you what, I'm going to go get a glass of water and I'll be right back. So he gets up, he gets a glass of water. Not a glass, but it's a cup, see-through cup with water in it. And Garrett goes to take a sip of it, and he intentionally spills it all over the table. And Agent Myers and Agent Williams back up like this because the water is overflowing. Agent Williams says, Garrett, you did that on purpose. Why did you do that? And Garrett had a little smile on his face and he said, "You're about to find out in 2 minutes. I'm Monograph, and if you can't speak freely, you're simply not free."